We are past the halfway point of the Acolyte's first season. We may or may not be getting another season, but for now, we are halfway through. I am Vactor. I'm here with Shoff, the man with the greatest hair in all podcasting. Shoff, how you doing today? He's got fireworks going off on his side.
That's cool. I didn't even plan for that. I just gave myself a thumbs up this way. And then it... Oh, wait, I can't... Okay, now I'm having performance anxiety. I was able to get it to do it once. I swear this never happens.
Yeah, Shoff's clothes are not coming out of his hands right now. Man, we're having a good time here. And we're going to have a good time today talking the 5th episode of the Acolyte's first season called Night. Last week we talked about day. Now we're talking about night. And Shoff, I think this might be a turning point in the series where somebody I was talking about with the theory of it's a mirror. So this first half is now going to be a mirror of the second half of the season. So we've reached the middle point of the season, and now we're going into the other half of the other side of the mirror. So we'll see what happens
through
in the next
looking glass.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But what did you think, Shoff, of episode 5 of The Acolyte?
So I gotta say, when they kind of explained that these 2 episodes were sort of, obviously the last episode ended on a cliffhanger. It was a very abrupt ending. We took issue with that. We had a feeling it was going to be called Night. We were right. The nighttime is the right time. The nighttime is the right time. Anybody that gets that deep cut, comment. Hit the comment. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this episode a lot. This to me delivered what I've been wanting to see from this show. And spoilers, I mean, aplenty throughout this episode, but the fight choreography stood out in a big way. Like this episode, dare I say, some of the best fight choreography for saber combat that we've seen in Star Wars in its entirety. Really precise, clean fighting. It looked fluid. I gotta say that some of the shows we've watched haven't really looked as great or haven't been as involved. This one looked really intricate, looked like they really did a lot in terms of drills to get this looking tight. And I gotta say, I was thoroughly impressed with the fight choreography.
I think this is the best since the prequels. The original trilogy, the fights are more emotional and they have an impact on the characters and the story. But the actual fighting, the actual sword play is not the greatest. The prequels is when it stepped it up, and you had the duel in episode 1, the Duel of the Fates with Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Darth Maul. And then in episode 3, I think the best fight in the entire franchise is Anakin and Obi-Wan. So this was, I think, around the level of the prequels, and especially for a show, like you said, this to me, this is what Ahsoka should have been. I was looking for this style of fighting on Ahsoka, and I'm happy that we're finally getting that in this show. We're seeing a lot of behind the scenes stuff coming out now, and I saw the actor who plays Yord. He was posting some stuff with him doing some training. I saw the actor that plays and Manny Jacinto plays a stranger. I saw him doing some stuff in some choreography. So that stunt choreographer, whoever it is, they did a fantastic job.
They really did. And it way better than Ahsoka. Way better than Ahsoka. Big time. I mean, granted, Baylan Skoll is one of my favorites in terms of how he was just, I mean, he was like a knight, the way he was handling his saber. It was like a knight. And his deliberate strikes. But Ahsoka and Sabine and Shin Hati, I didn't like their fights that much. I kind of was like, they're okay, but they kind of just drone on. There's nothing of sheer interest. But the stuff that was happening, really unique move sets, stuff we have never seen, some moves that we didn't expect to see. I mean, I'm leading into what I'm going to be talking about, but that I loved it. I loved it.
You know what I loved was what Yord says specifically when they're asking, when Oshi is like, what is that? What is that thing that they're fighting? And he's like, I don't know, it doesn't follow our rules. It doesn't, the motions and the things. And I was like, that is amazing to me, because that idea of the USA fighting the Vietnamese and the Viet Cong, and like the guerrilla warfare, where it's like, okay, we're going to go in there, we're going to shoot, and then, all right, clock out, we're going home. Like almost like the World War I, World War II style of fighting. But
Right.
this one, it's like he doesn't follow any conventions, he doesn't follow any rules, and that's one advantage that he's got. And then he can get in your head, and he's in the Jedi's head. And actually, he has three advantages. They've never trained for anything like this before. Everything that they've ever trained for is like, all right, we have set rules, and then this is uh our dueling styles. So that to me was exciting. I'm right there with you. The moves felt new, fresh. They felt unique, and it's what I've been looking for in this type of show, especially with that very first Carrie Ann Moss fight. I was like, okay, this is going to
Yeah.
be the
Yeah.
fighting in this show is going to be great. So I'm right there with you. I loved all of that stuff. Man, Shoff, what did you think about the reveal? Let's get right into that part of it. I
Yeah.
had
So go ahead.
I had speculated who the stranger was. I think it was episode 3, going back to episode 3.
The
And like I
stranger.
said, in that it was almost too obvious, to the point where he was the only person that was doing all the press but wasn't a main character on the show. So that felt weird to me. And then the fact that he knew so much about the Jedi, he could fight, like there was just too many things. So I felt like it got to the point last week where I was like, okay, there's too much, it's too obvious. My theory has gone full circle. I don't think it's him anymore, because it's too much of, like, it has to be a fake out, right?
Sure. Well,
What'd
you'd
you think
think
about
yeah, we kept saying, "Oh, it's a red herring. It's a red herring." Kemir, or how you pronounce his name,
Chimera?
Kymir. He's not going to be. He's not actually going to be this Sith Lord, but yeah. And I'm not bothered by it. I kind of expected it at this point. I mean, who else would have already been on the planet, right? Who already would have known about Kelnaka? He was the one who told May about Kelnaka and where he was. So like, like all of that was already established. We already had our suspicions. Like, he was the most obvious choice, and eliminating all like the most unbelievable possible things that it could have been. You look at the most likely outcome. The simplest explanation is usually the most right explanation, and this was definitely the case of that. And I think the reveal wasn't cheapened by the fact that it was him, because we got to see just how powerful he is with the dark side, and how proficient he is with a lightsaber. And I mean, he was doing stuff I've never seen before. One of my favorite moves he did was he kebabbed 2 Jedi. He like impaled one, and then he was like, force grip this way. You're going to end up on there too. Okay, we're going to have Jedi kebabs for dinner, everybody.
That was straight out of like Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor. Like, I felt
Yeah.
like that was a video game type move. And when that happened, I had an audible. I was like, what?
I did too. I was like, what? Oh my gosh. So that was really cool. The fight choreography and the scenes between Jackie and the stranger,
Yes.
that was
Mhm.
some of the best
Yes.
lightsaber dueling I've seen in a while. And kudos to Daphne Keene, because she definitely trained hard, because she really demonstrated she's awesome. And hashtag justice for Jackie, man, she held her own. She was a Padawan. She's not a full-fledged Jedi Master of any kind. Like, oh man, she kicked butt. I was really impressed. And I gave her a hard time last episode. I was making fun of the fact she can't side sleep, but she may not be able to side sleep, but she can definitely hold her own in a lightsaber duel, and she is strong with the Force, and she will be missed big time. She will be missed.
Yeah. There was even a great fight scene with her and May that did not have lightsabers, where they were just hand-to-hand combat. So this episode was wall-to-wall action. Jackie, May, the stranger, and all the Jedi, the stranger in Soul, the stranger in Jackie, the Stranger, and Jackie plus Soul. So they had like all of the possibilities of the fights. And that very first one, after we had seen him do the force push from the last episode, cut to this episode, and we're like on the edge of our seats, like, what's going to happen? You wake up, and there's already a dead Jedi in the
Yeah.
thing. So he had already been killed. I think maybe even by that force push that he got killed. But when you saw the Stranger in the background and he's like going at every single one of them, I was like, this is what I've been wanting from the start of this show. Like
Yeah.
everything in that, the philosophy of the fight, of the way he's getting in their heads, he's fending off multiple. And I saw people online like, well, the Jedi were just waiting to come at him one by one. And if you look at episode 3, when those Jedis come in to take over, to take Palpatine in, they're standing there and attacking him one by one. If you want to see that, if you do like a split screen between these two, this looks way more like a real fight would look, rather than that one where they're just standing around. So I don't understand the people's either the controversy
Yeah,
or
no,
whatever the people are
that's not
saying
the way. And
online.
also,
I
like,
don't get it.
Phantom Menace, same thing. You've got Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon working in tandem to take down Darth Maul, and you had Master Soul and Jackie working in tandem to try to take down the Stranger.
That was great.
By the way, I got a gripe with this name, the Stranger. The Stranger. This is the best they could come up with. First, I didn't even realize he was called a Stranger until Hasbro released the helmet. And Vactor sent me a thing showing that you could buy it, and it was like a replica helmet of the Stranger,
which I need. I need it, y'all.
They need a better name than that. That's ridiculous. The Stranger is only one thing, and that's when you sit on your hands for a real long time, and to the point where they lose feeling and they go all numb, and then you touch yourself, and it's like somebody else is doing it. So that's the Stranger.
Well,
that's the only Stranger I know. Not that I do that. My friend has done it before. He told me he did it.
Oh,
I don't do that kind of stuff. I don't do that.
Shoff is using the Force today. He's channeling his Force.
Hold on, I just need to sit on my hands for a little while. How long is this podcast episode going to be? They should be sufficiently numb by the end.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they will. I wonder if they will give him an actual name, because they asked him like, "What is your name?" I think Saul asks him, and he's like, "I don't have one."
You know what I saw online? People were calling him Darth Teeth.
Oh, actually, on my YouTube, I did a community post. I should pull it up. People were coming up with all kind of names. There was Darth. There was a bunch of teeth stuff. Darth.
Yeah.
Braces. Darth. Dentitis. There's all kind of Darth stuff. After we saw him in this episode, that was before the episode too. So after we saw him in this episode, people call him Darth Triceps, like showing off.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's cut for sure.
Cut.
Yeah. I was thinking about, they had talked. Obviously, there was a lot of feedback from last week that the ending was really abrupt. It was a short episode. It was like 30 minutes or whatnot. This episode was also only like 32 minutes or something like that. In the interviews they had in this week that took place before the episode 5, they were talking about how we felt like this was the most appropriate place to cut and have the next episode start. And I gotta say, I completely agree. Thematically, plot-wise, there is no better place to have put that cliffhanger than right there, especially with how Osha wakes up and sees the devastation and a bit of the aftermath that took place from that crazy force push move that he did that like sent all those Jedi backwards with the dust cloud. The dust was literally settling and we're picking up. Like, it was perfect. It was I fully defend what they were saying. That is the best place that they could have possibly cut that for episode 5 to begin. So although we didn't like the fact that we got a shorter episode last week, it made up for it.
I liked it, especially going week to week. I saw some people saying they should have combined day and night and it just as a 1-hour episode. But I think this is definitely going to work as an 8-episode thing that you can binge when we're done with this. But also week to week, the cliffhanger nature of it keeps you wanting to come back and wanting more. So I'm enjoying it as the ride of week to week. I will say there is a valid concern, I think, with people online who I've seen say, where's the story going at this point? Because this was a great episode for action. We got the reveal of the stranger as Chimere, but the overall, we still don't know what happened on Brendock, which that I think might be the major reveal of this
Yeah.
whole
Seems like
season.
they're saving it for sure.
And then the kind of the master plan of the stranger. And also, is he the master or is he the apprentice? Because that's a theory that I've had in my mind since the very first time I saw him. And we go back to the rule of two. There can only be two Sith, one master, one apprentice. But the entire time, there's never a time that the apprentice is not supposed to be coveting the master and supposed to be plotting to take over. So it makes sense that he would be the apprentice and not the master because he's looking for an acolyte. So that also, the Sith acolytes, if you look in the legends, the old stuff, that has existed for years as well.
Okay.
So I think he could definitely have another master. And Shoff, this is an actor that you may or may not be familiar with. I'm going to share my screen here. There's one actor that has not shown himself yet, and he was cast. This is David Harwood, and
Oh.
we've known this for a while that he was cast. We're halfway through and he has not been shown yet, right? And
Okay.
he's not a small time actor. I think he is a major actor. We've seen him on Supergirl as the Martian Manhunter. We've seen him in other things.
Yeah, he was
But
Hank Henshaw. Yeah.
I think he could be the master. That is a possibility. I think they could do something with around this time period that we're talking about. It could be Darth Plagueis, and that's Darth Plagueis leads into Sidious, and that leads into everything that we know in the regular canon. But it could be Plagueis. Before him, the Master was Tenebris. So there's that they could have that line of succession.
Yeah.
I think they could have that, or this could be another kind of an adjacent one where the stranger was trying to take over. He was trying to get into that, and then he wasn't able to break in, and that's why we never heard about him. Like, so I think it can still fit with the established timeline because in between us podcasting, Shoff, people have been going crazy about this breaking the canon, breaking the lore of Star Wars, and how Mundi not fitting in because he wasn't supposed to be born yet. And all of that stuff, to me, I've said it in my shorts in the comments and on social media, but it makes sense because it was not established in the six films what age he was, what age, as Shaw put it, the wiener head. My wife calls him the cone head. They never said his age in the movies. They never said when he was born. So them playing around with this, it it doesn't break anything to me. There's
Yeah.
nothing in the canon that breaks. So they could still do like I said, everything that they're doing with either the Sith or not the Sith. Because here's another thing, Shaw. Remember the phrasing that he said. He was like, "The Jedi might call me Sith," but he never
Right.
said like,
He never
"I am
says that.
Sith."
Well, and also I read online, and I don't know the music well enough of the score of the
Yes, I know where you're going.
sequel series, but
Yes,
they have said that when he reveals himself, it's the Kylo Ren theme
yes,
is
at
playing.
the very end of this episode.
Yeah.
Yes,
And so that leads you down the path of, oh, maybe he's like sort of like a precursor to the Knights of Ren or something
Yes.
like that.
because his helmet looks very similar to Ren's.
Yeah, exactly. But the Knights of Ren typically don't have force abilities. So that conflicts. But then again, Kylo Ren does, because obviously
Yes.
he's the the son of
Right.
Leia and Han. So
And he was
I don't
never
know.
established
I
as a
I don't
Sith.
personally believe he's a Sith in the truest sense of the word.
And
So
that's what I'm interested to hear your thoughts and other people's thoughts of do you consider him a Sith because of the wording and the phrasing of how he said it. So I'm very curious to hear
Yeah.
what everyone's thinking about that.
There was a lot of speculation. We talked about Coyote Mundi, but like there was that Plo Koon looking guy in the background of whatever that episode was earlier this season, and we're like, was that Plo Koon?
Yeah.
But I mean, they said in the credits that it wasn't. They didn't identify him as such, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't him. It could have been just a one-off thing. But he's part of the strike force of the Jedi group that's on that planet, and he gets impaled as well. So it's definitely not Plo Koon.
Yes.
But personally, I don't like that they used his species to just be a random person to get knocked off. First of all, it's a lot of extra makeup for no good reason. Right? And his race is only identifiable by one person who's also a Jedi, which is just done to make people speculate. It's just to like get the rumor mill going, the theory culture, clicking and popping and going crazy online. It's just Plo Koon. Oh god. Like it's just obnoxious to me. And we all love Plo Koon, and he was a big part of the Clone Wars, and we also got to see him in the prequel trilogy. My favorite character to play as in the Jedi, what's it called? Sega Dreamcast's Jedi Power Battles. I love that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's my favorite.
Yeah.
And I think actually, he was like the first one to have a yellow saber that I remember, which was cool. So
the only way that I knew it was not Plo Koon was, number one, in the credits, but number two, the official Star Wars Twitter actually responded to someone, and they said his name was Ithia Pan. They knew that people were going to be speculating and saying that it was Plo Koon. Yeah.
I'm looking back at my notes here. So here's something interesting. So Master Soul, I have a theory that Master Soul actually trained Chimere previously. Because there's a moment where they first are interacting with each other, and he says, Chimere says to him, this is while he's still wearing the helmet, he has not been unmasked yet. He says, "You don't recognize me?" And Soul replies, "I sensed something familiar." So that makes me wonder, like maybe he was another Padawan or another student, a youngling of something in Osha's class. And maybe that's how he knows of Osha and May and that whole thing.
The only problem with that is that he's seen his face. If he hadn't seen his face and he said, "I sense something familiar," I think they could still go down that route. But now that they revealed it, and remember earlier in the season when he was in that shop, Chimere was the one who said to him, don't erase my mind. Don't use your force powers." So they had seen his face earlier. So I think my theory about that is he was maybe on Brendok. Maybe he was there, or he had a cloak on, and he could sense something, or something we just haven't seen, because there's a 16-year gap that we don't know exactly what happened. But I think there's something where he had a hood on, or he had his face obscured, which also there was a quote that he had where he was like, what kind of a person doesn't, or what kind of a master doesn't show their face? And then he's like, "I don't know, you tell me." So then that made me think, like, what could that possibly mean, where Soul
well, I think it's Soul not fessing up to whatever went down on Brendok, that he has a guilty hand in, because it's more than just May lighting a fire, right? It's like something happened to all the that coven, something happened with the generator, like there was more going on, and definitely Soul is part of it, and he has buried it deep and tried to move past it without, and now it's all, the past is coming back to haunt him, and he's gonna have to face the truth soon enough. And I think that's what we're getting to. So like this idea of like of being like two-faced is that,
and that
Soul
fits.
is hiding behind a mask too.
Yeah. And I like stuff like that, where it's not necessarily, everything is out in the open. It's more like, okay, I'm reading something on another level, on another layer to this. But yeah, that line got me thinking, because we've seen Saul when he went up to that prisoner at the beginning, who looked like the guy from It's Always Sunny, but he calmed his mind or something, Like Saul has some type of a force ability that other Jedi don't have, and it's something with reading thoughts or something with the mind. And I wish they would kind of go into that because
Yeah.
that's something about the High Republic that I like. And you and I have read some of the High Republic, the early comics, but we're not all the way caught up. There's the force abilities where different Jedi can use the force differently, and it makes them unique. It's not like everybody can do the same telekinesis and Jedi mind trick. Like everybody can do the same thing. There's differences in their the way that they use the force. So I like that
Hmm.
in the High Republic era. But I'm really curious to get your thoughts on this, Shoff, because this has been kind of um, a sticking point with me for this show. I wanted this to be full on High Republic because this is
Yeah.
our first live action look at the High Republic. But really, so far, the only thing we've gotten is their robes, and then the Jedi Temple has gold spears, on the towers. But it doesn't feel like the High Republic to me. It feels more like the prequel era and stuff that we've gotten before. If I had never told you about the High Republic, I guess, would you think this was in a different time period? Would you think it was a different setting?
No. No, I don't think so. What would you bring into it that's not in it now that would make it High Republic for you?
There's two things for me. Number one, man, I really wish they had kind of pushed it back a little bit further because I commented in our last episode that this was leading into episode one. And I got a bunch of uh pushback from people saying, "How is this a lead in when it's 100 years before?" And I'm trying to like, okay, it's the lead in because these eras are longer periods of time. This is the end of the High Republic leading into the next era of the prequels. So I don't know why people didn't understand that. But anyways, I would have liked it if they had pushed this into maybe middle of the High Republic or beginning of the High Republic, because to me there would have been more Jedi. There would have been, like we just talked about, the force powers, like the emphasis on different people using the force differently. That would have made it more High Republic to me. And then the enemy is the Nile, which is the space pirates, and
Mm,
not the Sith, not anything that we have associated with the Skywalker saga, the prequels, any of that stuff. And that kind of, I wish the sequel trilogy had kind of done that too, because to me, anytime you're trying to copy the originals, you're gonna fall short because that was George Lucas. That was what we all fell in love with Star Wars. And I think really to move forward, we should be looking at new ways of doing these things. That's why I'm interested with this Ray movie, what they're gonna do, because that's gonna be the farthest in the timeline that we've ever seen.
yeah, that's
And
true.
then the opposite direction, James Mangold's movie is supposed to be the start of the Jedi, and that is like really interesting to me because that's like nothing we've ever, seen before. So all that to say, I think if we had more Jedi and more focus on the Force powers, that would make it more High Republic to me. Oh, and the enemy, the Nile. If they had that, it would be like this is not like anything else that we've seen
Yeah.
before. But
I think if
I
we spent more time on Coruscant at
yes,
like
yeah.
there at the Jedi like Academy, like
Hmm.
I think that would have given us a little bit more of a flavor of this, but we spend so
Yeah.
much time off world that you don't get the culture. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of a limitation of just television because of the budget. Although this budget is pretty high for this show, I don't want to say that it's not, but you're still a TV budget, and a lot of people have been commenting that this was like the CW Star Wars, and I can
No.
see what they're saying with the like they're thinking of a movie production budget and like the way it looks like a movie. But to me, this looks great. I think it looks just fine along with all the other Disney Plus
Yeah.
shows from Mando down to Ahsoka. But I think if they had um if they didn't have a TV budget, you would have what we have in the novels and in the comics where it's kind of like an unlimited budget and they're going all over the place. They're in every different planet, they're in all over the place, and they can focus on Coruscant. There's a space station called Starlight Beacon, and they go up there and they're on that. So if we had that also, that would be another thing to make it more High Republic to me. But what we're getting, I'm still enjoying it. I just maybe in the second season, if they go beyond that, we can have a little bit more of these things
or characters
focused.
that have already been established
That's
in
another one. Yep.
these graphic novels. If we
Yes.
see them in live action, like that would have
Right.
also helped.
Because right now we just
Feel.
have Vernestra Rowe, which she's interesting to me because she's so different from everything that she's been portrayed in the books. And then she has a different type of a lightsaber, which is a whip, and we're going to see that in an upcoming episode. But I'm curious what made her change from the end of the from what we know in the books and the comics to this in live action. There had to be something, an event that happens in her life that kind of changes her. So that's what
Mm.
I want to see. I want to see stuff like that.
Yeah, for
But
sure, for sure.
man, I'm
Let's see.
I also really enjoyed the mask itself and the gauntlets that the stranger wears.
Yes.
Are made out of cortosis, and they short out lightsabers when they hit them. So he had a number of times where he specifically used both his help. There's one scene actually. There's probably some GIF of it that somebody's made, but he blocks one with his hand, and then he blocks another with his head, and he shorts out both lightsabers. And going back to what you said, that's something, an interesting fight that we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Someone using that against a lightsaber. So that was really cool to me to see that. So I really
He
like
had a
that.
hidden
And visually
blade.
it looks cool. Yeah.
A hidden like
That was
detachable
cool.
blade. That was really cool. Yeah.
And that's how he punctured Jecki, gave her the the predator dots. Yeah, that was cool.
The predator dots. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Let's see. I have some other notes here. Let's see. Oh, Soul wants Stranger to remove his mask and show his face, to which Chimera says, "And let you read my thoughts? No, no, no." So I'm thinking, so what, the helmet's like Magneto's? It's like, get out of my brain, Charles.
I hope they actually say something about that, because if they leave it at that, just that line, and then we never hear anything else, that to me would be not satisfying. I want them to say, like, yes, cortosis, this metal, it blocks Jedis from using the Force. I mean, it looks like it has so far. And then, dang, there was another thing I was going to say about that, but I wish they would go a little bit further and give us an explanation. Oh, now I remembered when she shot him, either May or Oshi. I can't
Osha
remember
shot
which
him
one
with the
shot.
stun gun?
Yes. And he just looked at her. And at first I was like, okay, is he using some type of magic? Like, because I think he has also connected to that witch coven that we don't know about. I think we're going to find out more on Brendok. So in my mind, when I'm seeing him, I'm like, he's got dark side powers and he's got magic powers. He's got both. And that's why he can float like Mary Poppins in the background. And that's why
Mary Poppins, y'all.
That's why he can get in your head. And that's why he can block stun. Because
He
we've
can
never
also
seen
force heal. He can freaking force heal.
Well, I rewatched the episode, and the very first time I saw it, I was like, "Oh yeah. That was the first thing." But then when I watched it the second time, he moves his hand over, which looks like he's healing. But I zoomed in like on the wound itself, and I didn't see the wound like close up or like we did on Rise of Skywalker when Rey was able to heal. That was something that you could see the wound in real time closing up. So I don't know about that. I'm kind of 50-50 on that. Like I said, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, he's using, and we've never seen dark side users use that before.
Well, we only just saw Rey use it, and she's the first person we've ever seen do it. So and that took the sequel trilogy. Like, there's been a lot of Jedi that have come way before her, and no one's either. I mean, that's not to say no one's done it, but no one has been seen doing it.
Right.
And it certainly was a force power no one expected. And I got to say, I was not a fan of force heal. That is a cheap.
Too much makes it overpowered.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like, if that's, I mean, granted, there is a, it's not as simple as just healing. Like, you are taking life force from yourself to give to the person you're trying to heal, so you hurting yourself in the process, which I do like. There's got to be a give and take. It can't be,
Yeah, I like that.
just a magical power. Like there's got to be some kind of consequence to it, and that's how magic traditionally is. Like when you look at like witches and stuff, like their kind of magic, dark magic, there's always a consequence. It's whatever you're willing to accept. Like, so
Yeah, that's cool. I think the philosophy of the stranger is also something that I like, of Soul asking, he at one point he's like, "What do you want?" And the stranger just says, "Freedom. I want to be able to use my power however I want, and I want to acolyte. I want somebody that I can train."
he's like,
And
I
that
want
goes
a
back
later bedtime. I don't want to have to pick up my toys. I want mac and cheese every night.
That goes back to Brendock, where the witches were like, "This is not about good or evil." That's what Anastasia says to the daughters. It's about power and who is able to wield it. And that to me is an interesting idea of the Jedi being gatekeepers and saying, "Oh, only we can use the Force. Only we can
Right.
train the kids. You can't do it." So I like someone questioning the Jedi and saying, "Hey, maybe you're not the best person to raise our kids. Maybe let's have somebody else be able to use the Force." So that's an interesting idea to me. Um, what do you think about the stranger going after May? Like, does this make sense to you? His whole plan was to test her, but then it seemed like he was helping her kill with the poison.
Right.
He knew about the daggers and the knives with Indara, and then with Kelnaka, he killed him. So
Yeah.
it was like,
Yeah.
I don't understand what is the test and what is the, and that's what I earlier when I was saying, like, where's the story going? What is his plan? Like, what does he want out of all that? And then here's my question to you, Shaw. Why didn't he just kill May? Because there's one point where she had her shackles on and he takes the lightsaber and he just cuts her free, basically. He cuts her shackles off. He could have killed her easily. Do you think do you think he did that on purpose? Or do you think this is just in the writing? They're like, "Yeah, we got to keep her alive."
I don't know. That's a really good question, because he definitely multiple times he's got her, in like a, holding her hair, and he's got the lightsaber to her head, like he's going to, uh, totally kill her, but he's always too busy blabbing. He's got
Right.
things to say. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of just the bad guy trope. All the
Mm.
exposition, the narration.
Right.
I'm going to tell you my evil plan instead of just doing it. So
Yeah.
so we'll see. I did not like May at all this episode. All she
Mm.
does is run away. Every single scene, she's running away from the action. I sounded like Trump there for that. She's running away. She's not sticking around, frankly. Yeah, I don't like, that character is so boring to me. But then out of nowhere, she does a crazy haircut move with her saber. I tell you what, that's ridiculous. As soon as that happened, I said, "Oh, stupid." I was like, that is so stupid.
It's funny. I saw a tweet where somebody said that was the moment where they checked out, and somebody responded like they were acting like it's never been done before. Actually, a number of times where that's been done, from a Padawan to a knight, and you're cutting off the braid. They do it with the lightsaber. And there was another one that they had, but it was just funny the juxtaposition they put. Like, "Oh, you didn't like that? Well, here's these 4 times that it's already been done in Star Wars." But it looked funny in the context of the scene of her doing it, and the fact that she was able to do it so precise that she made herself look exactly like Osha, exact hairstyle, the exact length of each individual braid.
With
She was
one
able to do
swipe.
it. Maybe she used the Force, Shaw. She used
Come
the Force
on.
haircut.
So dumb. So
Yes.
dumb.
And her, man, I'm also kind of like, where's May going? Because she flip flopped the last episode. Oh, well, my sister's alive, so that means everything's different, right? And then in this episode, she pushed her down, took her clothes off, changed her clothes, left her naked in the woods.
Yeah, left her in her undies.
Yeah. And then So now what is her plan with the Jedi? I don't
Oh
like,
man.
what is the plan here? May, I want to know. I want to see
That's
what the
not how
next
you treat your
episode.
twin. You don't leave them in their panties in the jungle. Come
But
on.
we got that flash of her tattoo again for Oshi, and I was like, okay, that's definitely at some point the mark on
Right.
May's head
The whole
and the
thing she's got.
tattoo
Yeah.
on Osha's arm is going to come into play. Some point, somebody's going to be like, "Oh, you're the other one."
You
It's
know,
going to
for
mark my words.
Master Soul, I am disappointed in because at every possible chance he has to force sense things, he sucks. He sucks. He can't tell May from Osha at all. He's like, all right, come on back on the ship with me. Osha? You're definitely Osha, right? Like there's not even a question. There's not even a question. And I'm just like, even if May were trying to pretend to be Osha, there would be thoughts going on, right? Like you would be thinking about how am I gonna pull this off, you know, like, and he's not sensing that sort of disturbance of like, you know, your thoughts contradicting
Right.
yourself, or if he doesn't he sense that Osha is lying down in the jungle. Like there's an aspect to the Jedi that really bothers me in this show, is that how little they're aware of. But then again,
Yeah.
that's kind of the problem with the prequel Jedi too,
Right.
is
Right.
their lack of awareness is what allowed a Sith to essentially climb the ranks of politics to the point of becoming the Emperor.
It fits in line with the Force being kind of whatever the writers want it to be in the time of, okay, sometimes they can sense it and sometimes they can't. And especially leading up into, like you were saying, into the prequels of, there was this dark cloud, and Mace Windu at one point even says, I think we don't, our ability to use the Force is not what we thought about it. So we should probably
We're
think about
not
that.
doing really well here.
And there's even one scene that Palpatine is sitting in front of a group of Jedi masters, including Yoda. And I saw somebody on Twitter was like, did you guys not notice the Sith Lord right there? He's right in front of you. The thing that bothered me was that he didn't even care about Jackie's body. It was like, that's your Padawan. You didn't bring her body back to the ship.
He left all the bodies there.
Yeah.
They didn't do shit to clean it up.
That
like no
was what
funerals,
bothered me.
no burials. There was no moment. It was like, we gotta go. We'll come back for him, maybe. But the Umbra moths can go ahead and feast on their dead bodies at this point.
Yeah. So I didn't have a problem as much on the second viewing, because I thought about that, but of what you said. But on my second time, I think the way I interpreted it was, he was so in his head about the stranger, and he looked distracted. I think that's a credit to the actor, and he looked like he was like thinking about that, and because she looks like, no, they're supposed to be identical, and she looks exactly like her. He was like, oh yeah, that's her. Maybe when he gets back on the ship, he'll start to sense something. But also, we know the MVP of this episode, Basil, he's up to something. His nose knows he's on the ship, and he can smell. So I think he's going to be the one. But the reason why I say he's the MVP, Shoff, is because he's the one who saved Pip. Because when she went, Pip, I love you. All right, later. I was like, no, you're getting rid of Pip. He's one of my favorite droids. But when Basil found him in the forest, I was like, there, he's the MVP of the episode. He picked up Basil, or he picked up Pip. So I that was one of my favorite parts of the episode. But man, this was a fun episode. That was like the most, like, even though it's dark and a lot of people died, I think this was still just a fun
Yord
episode. Yeah. His snap was surprising because both him and Jackie, I thought, the actors have been doing press a lot. They've been the ones on the press tour, and I figured they would last throughout this whole season.
Yeah.
So that was interesting that they got rid of Yord. Also, I think you and I talked about it on a previous episode. We never really got to know Yord. I think there was like, okay, he's supposed to be rules like by the book, and he's steaming his outfit, right? Like all of those things are supposed to be character traits of him. But I felt like we still could have gotten to know him better throughout this this show. So I was a little disappointed to see that he didn't have a little bit more character growth. But I
I
think
agree.
the next episode, whatever happened on Brendock, you know what I was thinking? I wonder if the stranger is going to Osha is with him now. Is he gonna like pull her memories out or make or unrepress her memories so that she and that's how we get into the flashback of what happened is he's going into her mind and seeing it like, oh, this is actually what happened. You know, you thought that's what happened. Here's the actual truth of what happened, or he's showing it from his point of view. So I'll be interested to see what happens in these next couple episodes because we've reached the halfway point. We've got less than 4 episodes left. What is the end goal of this show and what is the end game, you know, at the end of this? Because actually, I thought this is kind of like an Ahsoka thing where it's like, is this a series? And the same thing with Obi-Wan. Is this a series finale or is this a season finale? Are we going to get more? I saw Leslie Headland, the showrunner, was like, yeah, I would like to do 3 or 4 seasons. And I'm like, man, if we know that in the back of our minds going into it,
well,
it would be easier.
So the show being called The Acolyte, to me, it doesn't. The appropriate ending of a show like this is somebody becoming an acolyte, right? Like there's the May's pursuit of becoming an acolyte, but she's not going to be successful, right? She's basically been cut off, and doesn't have a chance. Whereas, you've got Osha now under Chimere's control. Osha, I'll say this: May will die. Osha will learn the truth and what the Jedi hid from her, and those combination of things are going to lead her to becoming his acolyte.
Ooh, that would be very interesting. If they
that's
did
my guess is that the twist really is that the good twin is not going to be the good twin, and it'll be because the Jedi effed up.
Yeah, and that's not something people are predicting. So if that ends up being true, that would be satisfying to me because at the end of the day, I don't want to be able to predict everything that's going to happen, and I also want to be satisfied with what is the end, because that was the thing with Ahsoka. Like the ending to me was very unsatisfying. Now this season 2, whatever happens in season 2 of Ahsoka, could like make me look back at season 1 and have a better perspective of it because I have more of a complete picture. But if they just had ended it at 1 season, I would not be satisfied where they left it. So, Ezra, what are you doing? Speaking of Ezra, my son is here and he was named after that Star Wars character. So, Ezra wanted to jump in. And he wants to show you his monster trucks.
The Force is strong with him, like his father.
Yes. Excellent, Shoff. Well, I'm glad that the season is picking up action wise. Hopefully, we can. I'm hoping that wasn't the end of the action. I'm hoping there's not. There's more. There's more left.
I mean, we know that we still get that lightsaber whip action.
Yes.
At some point in these next few episodes. So,
and
looking forward to seeing that.
There's in one of the trailers we saw Kelnaka in a flashback, so maybe we'll get his lightsaber fight. Maybe. All right. Well, we are Trusting the Force. We're here talking the Acolyte every week. We'd love it if you would join us. Give us your thoughts on the show. If there's something that you liked or didn't like about the show, leave it in the comments below. But be respectful. We don't have to insult each other and call each other names. If you liked it and somebody else didn't, that's fine. Just give us a valid reason.
It's so true. If we like an episode, we're called shills, and if we don't like an episode and we nitpick, we're called incel, beta male, cuck boys. The whole it's insane. It's insane. This dark side sect of Star Wars fandom, because it's not the entire fandom. The entire fandom is great overall, but there is this dark cloud of fandom that is going to vilify you no matter what opinion you have. So we just take it in stride, but try to keep it respectful, please.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Trust only in the Force.